In this section, I'm going to carry on the discussion about another hazardous building material, PCBs. Then I'll sum up the conclusion of how green coatings encasement is a simple way to safely manage in place all these talked about offending hazardous materials, saving money and time while limiting risk and liability. PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, which are another hazardous industrial compound that is extremely toxic and one more obsolete building material that can create both health and financial risks. They present health dangers to all exposed to them, including fetuses, and they are especially toxic to infants and children suffering from neurological and developmental challenges. Like lead-based paint, this construction component was also banned in the USA in 1978. Asbestos was banned 4 years earlier in 1974. Although no longer commercially produced in the United States, PCBs may be present in products and materials produced before the 1978 PCB ban. They are also still produced and used in many other parts of the world. PCBs are a mixture of individual chlorinated biphenyls. They are proved to cause an assortment of health concerns, including cancer and non-cancer effects, also attacking the immune system, reproductive system, and causing neurological effects. Due to the fact that PCBs don't easily degrade or break down, made them a popular ingredient and was predominantly used in numerous construction materials for industrial use. Even though the USA banned the materials decades ago, it is still widely used worldwide and continues to expose many to its harmful environmental effects. The less dense the type of PCBs, the greater chances of the toxic pollution traveling long distances from the site of its decay. Like other outdated hazardous building materials, such as asbestos and lead-based paint, PCBs are still in place, and unfortunately, there is no way to practically remove all of them. If not properly controlled, they will subject many to the far-reaching and damaging health effects, along with financial liabilities. This is especially concerning in schools, hospitals, and other public buildings where the risk of health and financial exposure is greater than in other typical buildings. The more people are educated about the concerns of exposure, the greater chance of avoiding and mitigating that exposure. The first thing to know is that PCBs come in both solid and liquid forms, and they need to be dealt with differently. For this discussion, we'll be looking at the solid form of PCBs and how there is a simple and safe way to control them to avoid exposure. In this form, they are most common in oil-based paints, sometimes also containing lead, adhesives and tapes, caulking, and floor finishes. I've personally been on projects where coatings on a building contain all three solid hazardous materials of PCBs, asbestos, and lead-based paint, what is known as a triple whammy. The release of these toxic materials becomes more likely over time, with those materials breaking down after attack from weather, UV, ultraviolet rays, building movement due to vibration, expansion, and contraction, along with other environmental factors such as acid rain, chemical air pollution, and just common decay from age. The first step is to identify the offending material and then safely contain them. This can be accomplished by covering and sealing them in place with a simple applied green coating encasement system. Although any coating will seal it in, only a sustainable industrial coating with specific characteristics that is designed and tested for that use should be implemented. Only a proven quality coating should be used to in-place manage hazardous materials, guaranteeing that those offending materials are properly controlled, which can help prevent potential harmful exposure. When using protective coatings to deal with the containment and in-place management of solid hazardous materials, only superior coatings that have been tested and demonstrated to hold up to extreme exterior situations should be considered. Also, a coating that is designed to last long term, at least 20 years. Okay, in the last two segments, and this third one, we discuss the three most prevalent solid hazardous materials found on and in buildings as well as on structures throughout the world: asbestos, lead-based paint, and PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. These hazardous materials continue to break down, exposing millions of people to their deadly poison and their persistent contamination to the environment. The good news is that most of the potentially offending material can be safely and simply managed in place, stopping the release directly at the source. We have all types of potentially dangerous materials that we safely utilize and live with, applying the same method of in-place management that we are discussing here. Let's look at the worldwide use of electricity that has improved all our lives and cannot be lived without. This needed form of energy is also very dangerous if left unchecked or simply uncovered. We safely deal with this by making sure that it is securely covered, most often with a quality protective coating. An approved coating that brings that electric current into our everyday lives and often direct contact with people and their contents. If electricity is not safely and simply managed with coatings that cover the wires, then that unchecked power can electrocute people, burn down buildings, and cause considerable damage. This is another case where quality matters, and you don't want cheap materials or coatings to be used. This is especially true dealing with hazardous materials where their sustained containment is critical for protecting people and the environment. Gasoline in our vehicles is another case where people worldwide safely deal with potentially hazardous and dangerous material. It is also another case where you would not want cheap materials used to hold that dangerous gasoline. So I believe that even though we have hazardous materials such as asbestos, lead-based paint, PCBs, etc. in our lives, we can safely deal with them by the simple application of the right sustainable protective green coating encasement system to safely manage them in place, reducing the risk while saving money and time and also protecting the environment.